Hi, you guys. I am back again, and I want to share this story with you guys. I'm going to get straight into it. It says an Arkansas woman drowns in a flood after 911 dispatcher scorns her during her final moments. I mean, that is just so sad. Deborah Stevens was working her normal newspaper delivery route in Fort Smith, Arkansas, when rising floodwaters began to overtake her vehicle. The final desperate 911 call of the 47-year-old woman who delivered Southwest Time record to front doors came at 4:38 on the morning of August 24th. It was a panic 22-minute plea for help with a dispatcher that the Fort Smith Police Department admitted sound callous and uncaring at times. I have an emergency, a severe emergency, Stevens told the female dispatcher. I can't get out and I'm scared to death, ma'am. Can you please help me? This is her, Deborah, after calling the 911 trying to get help. A terrified Stevens told the dispatcher over and over that she was going to die in the rapidly rising water. She wept and asked when help would arrive. She didn't know how to swim, she said. She had trouble describing her location. She didn't want to die. The dispatcher told her, "You're not going to die," in an audio released by police this week. I don't know why you're freaking out. You're freaking out is doing nothing but losing your oxygen in there. So calm down. Stevens said water was pouring into her car. It would soon ruin her new phone. Do you really care about your brand new phone? Asked the dispatcher, who happened to be working her final shift that morning. You're over there crying for your life. Who cares about your phone? Stevens said she didn't see the water on the road. She came up on it suddenly. The water was getting as high as her chest, she said. She could see people in the distance looking at her. They're probably laughing, she said. Ma'am, I'm sorry, Stevens cried. Stevens needed to vomit, she said at one point. Well, you're in the water. You can throw up, the dispatcher said. It's not going to matter. Crying uncontrollably, Stevens asked the woman on the line to pray with her. You go ahead and start off the prayer, the 911 operator said. Please help and get me out of this water, dear Father, Stevens said. Again, she apologized. She didn't mean to be rude, but she was so afraid. This will teach you next time. Don't drive in the water, the dispatcher told her. Stevens insists she didn't see the flood waters. She'd worked her paper route for 21 years and never experienced anything like this. I don't know how you didn't see it. You had to go right over it. The water just didn't appear. Now, after about 15 minutes into the recording, the dispatcher is heard taking other calls. Police said many stranded residents were calling that morning. Stevens wept on the line. The dispatcher tried to describe to the firefighters the stranded woman's location. I'm on the phone with her, she said. She's freaking out. Now, 18 minutes into the call, the dispatcher was asking a firefighter whether he could see Stevens' SUV. Negative, he said. There was confusion about her location. The stranded motorist cried uncontrollably. Miss Debbie, you're going to have to shut up, the dispatcher said. Can you honk your horn? My horn is dead, Stevens said. Everything is dead. The water was rising above the door of her SUV, Stevens said. Oh, Lord, help, she cried. Rescuers trying to find her, the operator said. Oh, my God, my car is starting to move, Stevens cried. Okay, listen to me. I know, the dispatcher said. I'm trying to get you help. I know you're scared. Just hold on for me because I've got to take other calls. Stevens screamed. She said she couldn't breathe at that point. But instead of me reading all that, I'm going to include a clip of the 911 call where Miss Stevens called in. Everybody was saying she was a model of being a good servant, doing what God called, her to do. She was just great in her community with her friends and everything else. And they was just appalled that, she's calling 911 for help and she's treated this way. I mean, yes, it was a bit insensitive, and I know, this dispatcher property was just whammed with all the calls that was coming in, but sometimes it don't take nothing but a little bit of your effort to just listen, to just take the time to understand and be considerate and show compassion when it comes to people in their emergencies, because this lady ended up dying. She ended up drowning. And if this was me, even though this was the dispatcher's last day, she'd been there a good amount of years, and this was her last day on the job. But I would not want to go out like this, even if it wasn't my last day on the job. I would not want to have this on my conscience, that not that I was the cause that someone lost their life, but simply because I was rude to that person. And see, the dispatcher wasn't even there in the situation to know how bad it was. She was just scorning the lady because she figured the lady just went out and disobeyed, a sign, or disobeyed the weather or whatever. But anyway, y'all, just, listen to the 911 call. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.
Well, tonight, the interim police chief in Fort Smith says he's disturbed by a 911 call involving a flash flood victim, and now he's investigating. And the entire 911 call made by victim Deborah Stevens was released by police today. Out of respect for the family, 4029 will only broadcast some parts of the call that relate to this investigation. But still, we want to warn you, this call is hard to hear.
Tonight, we have 4029's Brett Rains joining us live in Fort Smith with this story. Brett.
Well, this is where Debbie Stevens drowned inside her car. Now take a look here. You can see where a temporary memorial has been set up to honor her. And today we learned that the dispatcher who took that call submitted her resignation 2 weeks before last Saturday when she took that 911 call. We also know it was the dispatcher's last day on the job.
You're not going to die. Hold on for a minute.
Well, I'm scared. I'm sorry.
I understand that you're scared, but there's nothing I can do sitting in a chair, so you're going to have to hold on, and I'm going to send you somebody, okay?
That's Debbie Stevens begging for help. She was on the phone with 911 for about 24 minutes. She tells the dispatcher water is filling up her car.
You're not going to die. I don't know why you're freaking out. It's okay. I know the water level is high. I understand that, but you freaking out is doing nothing but losing your oxygen up in there, so just calm down.
When are they going to be here?
As soon as they get there.
Police and firefighters arrived about 12 minutes after the initial call, but it took rescue crews more than an hour to reach Stevens. This police body camera video shows just how flooded the area was.
I'm scared. I've never had anything like this happen to me before.
Well, this will teach you next time. Don't drive in the water.
Couldn't see it, ma'am. I'm sorry, or I wouldn't have.
I don't see how you didn't see it. You had to go right over it. So
I completely understand the disgust and the concern that we all have. I understand that listening to a person going through the panic that Miss Stevens was in those final moments of her life, we would all hope that we would get a little bit better response than perhaps what she was given. I don't want us interacting with anybody in that way, whether it's a life and death situation or not.
The interim police chief says that dispatcher turned in her 2 weeks notice and this call came in on her last shift. The interim chief says he doesn't know why the Stevens 911 call was not given top priority.
I don't think the dispatcher realized or understood the severity of the situation.
The interim chief says right now they're investigating to see if police policies were followed and how they can be improved. He says, regardless, the dispatcher most likely would not have been fired.
I can absolutely no criminal. We've looked at that, and she did nothing criminally wrong. I'm not even going to go so far as to she violated policy.
And right now, we're not releasing the name of that dispatcher. The interim police chief says she worked for the department for 5 years and was in charge of training new dispatchers. She was also named Fire Dispatcher of the Year this year. Now, I've reached out to her for comment. Of course, I'll let you know if she calls me back. And we'll have more coming up tonight at 6. Live in Fort Smith, Brett Rains, 4029 News.
And a memorial fund has been set up through Eastside Baptist Church in Fort Smith. The Stevens family pastor tells us that funeral arrangements are not finalized yet. Debbie and her mother both worked in the children's ministry at the church.